quite significantly compared to last year. So that's on the mining operation. Let's go to the others. The next slide. Export operation, you can see that as of 9 months of this year, basically the total output that we have is around 71,500 tons in the form of MHP that we produce. And as for the nickel sulfate, it's already reached around 29.5 thousand. On top of that, I would like to inform all the audience also that we already started production of electrolytic cobalt. So we have a kind of a option whether we can produce the cobalt sulfate or we can produce the electrolytic cobalt. Depend on the market, so we can arbitrage, depend on the market situation, whether we want to produce cobalt sulfate or we can produce the electrolytic cobalt. And on the sales volume also reflecting the same, you can see that there's a significant growth of the sales, reflecting the increase of production that we have also in the first 9 months of 2024. Next. On the RKF operation also, in accordance with the increase of capacity as we run full capacity of our second RKF, which is HEF, as of 9 months of this year, the actual output capacity already is 95,800, where our nameplate capacity is around 90,000 this year. The sales volume also reflecting the increase of the production as well, so we can manage to record a sales of nickel in the first 9 months up to around 97,100 ton accordingly. Next. This is just to refresh the growth plan that we have. Currently, we already completed the ONC, the second HPL, and we are in the progress of completing the expansion of the third RKF, which is KPS. But we are now focusing on completion of the 4 first line of the total tap that we are planning for the KPS. So we are also hoping that the first line of this KPS can do the commissioning by early of next year. And we do hope that probably in late 2025, the KPS, the remaining 8 lines can also complete the construction or early 2026. Next. Okay. Just to update, this is what I mentioned earlier. Starting from August, we managed to produce electrolytic cobalt. You can see that this is the factory operation of our electric cobalt plant. We produce that in the form of small square coins like that we export for 100% of the product. The total nameplate capacity is around 6,000 tons per year. As of now, we already produce around 500 tons since August, and then we already shipped several tons to buyers starting from August and September. Next. On the KPS, as of September, the construction of the 4 line already reached 77%, and we do hope that we can start the production in first quarter of next year. And the 4 line that we are now under construction will have capacity of 60,000 ton content nickel per year. Then we will also looking at the progress of the remaining 8 in the next in the coming months accordingly. Okay, next. Okay, this is also to highlight about our progress. Since we have increased demand of ore from our smelters, so we start doing the activities in our third mining, which is GTS. As you can see in the slide that we already started construction of the road to mining pit. We already prepared the road to jetty facilities, and we already start construction of the jetty facilities there. The right side slide, you can see that how many drillings that we have done so far in the GTS side, especially the western side of the GTS. Up to now, we already did drilling around 1,600 holes in the area of around 483 hectares. As per now, the MOROR for this remaining the one area that already we drilled, we already identified potential limonite of around 27 million wet metric ton and saprolite around 14 million wet metric ton. So total reserve and resource from this drilled area is around 41 million wet metric ton accordingly. Okay. Next this is the summary of our GORC. You can see that compared to last year, there is a slight increase of our total reserve and reserve, where we can see that the limonite is higher by around 4 million compared to last year GORC, while the saprolite also increased almost around 4 million. So in total, the total reserve and resource that we have for based on the GORC 2024 is around 309 million tons, compared to last year only around 302 million tons. Next. Okay, on the financial highlight, I would like to, Pak Suparsin, can you continue with the presentation? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Roy. Next, we move to the financial highlights. These are the summary of our profit and loss statements. The top left chart showing trend of strong revenue with 80% CAGR from 2020 to 2023 and 18% growth in the third quarter 2024 compared to last year. This is contributed by expansion in the nickel processing facilities, which increased our production volume. For comparison, our mining operations sold 6.8 million tons ore last year and 10 million tons this year, or about 39% increase in sales volume. Our RKEF operations sold 70,000 tons of nickel last year and 97,000 tons of nickel this year. Also 39% increase in sales volume. From profitability margin, TBP's gross profit, EBITDA, and net profit margin are still continuously growing, despite the fact that nickel price is lower this year, but we can also reduce our production costs because of the higher production output. As Pak Roy also mentioned in the previous slides, our production output from mining segment increased by 12%, from RKEF increased by 39%, and from HPAL increased by 47%. Therefore, you can see our gross profit margin improves by 9%. EBITDA margin improves by 14%, and net profit margin improves by 8%. Under so many pressures in nickel business recently, we are proud to say this is an amazing result for TBP. Okay, next. This is our average selling price, cash cost, and cash margin. Not so many movement from first half 2024. From mining, we have limonite and saprolite, which can generate about 63% and 61% cash margin each. From HPAL products, we can generate about 40 to 50% cash margin from MHP, nickel sulfate, cobalt sulfate, or electrolytic cobalt. RKEF products can generate above 25% cash margin. I would like to emphasize on the RKEF. You can see our cash margin from RKEF is above $3,000 per ton. Some people say it's a privilege to be able to make money above $1,000 cash margin from NPI nowadays, but we are lucky to be able to make 3 times higher margin than that. Okay, I think that's all from financials.
Okay, thank you, Suparsin. I will continue with an update on ESG and sustainability. And so we have reviewed several standards in the ESG and sustainability space, and also the requirements now and in the future of downstream buyers. And the two most important ones, or urgent ones to follow, are IRMA and the Responsible Mining Initiatives, the RMAP certification. For Irma, we are currently in the assessment, in the audit process. We have started stage 1 audit, which is a desktop review. It will take several weeks. After that, there will be a preparation period for the site audit, which will happen sometime in 2025, and later in 2025, we expect the result from that. Irma is currently seen as the most stringent standard for sustainability and responsible mining. There's a lot of interest from the local government, from Indonesian government, but also from the international market. So that's why Irma has recently started a dedicated forum for Indonesia, in which we're also actively participating. On the RMI RMAP side, we have completed the audit already several months ago. There were some corrective actions that we had to implement, which we have done now, and we're waiting for the review of the evidence that we have sent to RMI and for the quality control process to finish the audit. Next slide, please. In terms of human rights, we wanted to reaffirm our commitment to human rights protection and also update that we have for a long time already implemented several initiatives and mechanisms to mitigate and minimize the risk and totally eliminate eventually the risk for forced labor. We have done a human rights due diligence assessment with the Foundation for International Human Rights Reporting Standards, which is led by Marzuki Darusman, which is an Indonesian former UN human rights investigator in several high-profile cases. And that investigation has found that there's no sign of forced labor in our operations. And it has given us some good points for continuous improvement, both for our internal processes, but also for how we work with the community. So the assessment comprised everything from human rights, including community and our employees. And it was done against several international standards, the UN Guiding Principles for Business and Human Rights, other UN standards as well. And we comply and align also with several international standards. For continuous improvement, we have recently appointed a dedicated human rights coordinator who will oversee the improvement across the organization. Next slide. So in terms of the coal dome, so we have this is one of our main initiatives to reduce emissions and also mitigate any impact on local air quality. So we have this system where we transport the coal directly from the jetty with conveyor belts into the coal domes, where it is protected from the moisture, and therefore we also keep the calorific value as it should be of the coal, and then transport the coal also with conveyor belts directly into the power plant. So this is very effective because it reduces the road emissions. It also reduces the dust generation. As mentioned, it keeps the calorific value optimal for the coal. And we have recently installed our second coal dome. So we had one previously, and now we have established a second one. And both of these domes have a capacity of 300,000 metric tons each, so 600,000 combined. Next slide. In terms of the progress of our relocation of the village, which is a government initiative that we have been asked to support, we are still completing the commercial area. However, we are almost finished with this one. The village was completed earlier, so everything is nearly ready, and some of the community members have started to move into the new village. Next slide. In terms of general progress of our CSR initiatives, we have highlighted here some of the latest numbers from our health services, where we support with free medical services. We also work in the prevention of stunting, which is a big issue on Obi Island, and several other initiatives. In terms of education, there we support the local community with training for small businesses, but also with professional training so that we can hire more people from the local community. And we also support socio-cultural events and activities. And in total, the impact from our community development and empowerment program has so far created 715 jobs. We support 65 local suppliers and 21 farmer groups. And as you can see, the transaction amount per month is significant, up to around $860,000, which is a significant improvement to the number that we saw in 9 months 2023. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Harita Management, for the presentation. Yeah, I see there's already 2 questions coming from the floor. Yeah, the first one will be coming from Pa Alex. What are the contributors to your higher margin in NPI versus others? I think Pak Suparsian can help to answer these questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pa Alex, for the questions. Regarding the higher margin in NPI, there are several factors, of course. One is the selling price, and second is the cash cost or production cost. From the selling price, I find that we can sell slightly higher than our competitors. We have compared that. And yeah, actually, because we have a partner who, which is Legend, is really familiar with the market seminar. They can find a better deal for our LKF. From the cost perspective, we can say that we have some advantage. One is from the location, the geographic area, because all of our products so we can save a lot from the freight cost, transportation, etc. And the second one is TBE has its own supporting facilities like power plant. Sorry, I need to change my headset. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, technical problems. Yeah, so this on the cost advantage is because we have our supporting facilities. We have our power plant, our own port, and that makes our electricity cost is really competitive. We don't have to buy the electricity from the third party. And sorry, wait a minute.
Sorry, we are having a bit of technical difficulties.
Okay. Sorry for that. Yeah, so from the selling price and also production cost, we already have the advantage. That's why we can have a higher margin compared to others. Hope this answer your questions, Alex.
Okay, thank you, Pak Suparsin, for the answer. The second questions will be coming from Edward. He's from Verdana. With the cash cost now being lowered due to higher production, can we expect similar cash cost level moving forward? Also, could you please give a little bit of color of the economics of electrolytic cobalt? Thank you. I think Pak Suparsin also can answer these questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Pak Edward, for the question. Yeah, our expectation is the cash cost from RKF
will remain the same going forward, because this year our RKF has reached full capacity. So the cash cost is the same going forward, but it also depends on and also coal price, because these two materials are our main costs for the NPI. And for the electrolytic cobalt, let's compare this way. For electrolytic cobalt, the price of the cobalt is about $20,000 to $22,000 per ton now, compared to the cobalt price in MHP, which is about $12,000 to $13,000 per ton. So we can have extra $10,000 per ton by processing the cobalt into electrolytic cobalt. Yeah, I think that's to answer your question.
Okay, thank you, Pak Suparsin. The third questions will be coming from Farakon. You mentioned that the 8 lines of KPS will be finished by early 2026. So are the second and third phases already under construction? I think Pak Roy can help to answer the questions for the updates. Thank you.
Thank Okay, thank you, Pak Lukito. So basically, to answer the question about from Pak Farakon, basically we already started the construction of the 8 lines, but we do that not very aggressively. For example, we just do the foundation, construction work on the foundation, start doing the piling and everything on that. So whenever we're ready, we can speed up and accelerate the progress of the remaining 8 lines. So basically, that's the condition that we have now on the ground, Pak.
Okay, thank you, Pak Roy. Another questions coming from Jeremy from Bahana Securities. The first one will be, is electrolytic cobalt is a downstream product of cobalt sulfate? If so, how many tons of cobalt sulfate are required to produce 1 ton of electrolytic cobalt? I think I'll just ask this to Pak Sin first, and then I'll read the next question later on. Please, Pak Suparsin, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Pak Jeremy. On your question about the cobalt sulfate, actually it's an option whether we want to produce cobalt sulfate or electrolytic cobalt. So the process is from MHP. We process the MHP into nickel sulfate and cobalt sulfate, or from MHP to nickel sulfate and electrolytic cobalt.
Okay, the second questions will be, can you provide more details on the use of remaining IPO funds as approved in NCKR latest EGMS? Pak Suparsin, I think you can help to answer the question. Thank you.
Okay, so as approved by the EMS, we would like to use the remaining IPO funds to increase our ownership in the associate company.
Okay, thank you, Pak Suparsin. I don't see any other questions at the moment. We'll wait another like 1 or 2 minutes. Or is there any questions coming directly from the attendee? I think there's one from Pak Igor. I think you can unmute yourself and directly ask the questions. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you,
Yes.
Rita
Go
Tim.
ahead, Pak Igor.
Just
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. A few questions. My first question, if I look at your third quarter, there was an an additional of total debt over 2.9 trillion in the third quarter. What's the purpose of that additional of debt? And also, was it under HGF in terms of the recording? That would be my first question.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Igor. I think we can answer that one by one. Pak Suparsin or Pak Hari would like to answer the question.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Pak Igor. Yes, correct. The additional debt is for HGF.
Sure. So is it for developing HGF specifically, the use of this debt going forward? Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, we are not developing further any factories or anything for HGF, but this is more on the optimizing the equity structure of HGF. So this is to maximize the equity portion.
Okay. Thank you, Pak. My second question regarding your revaluation over 1.5 trillion at ONC per your financial. Can you share more light on this, the purpose, and if the plan to increase the stake in ONC continue?
Okay, for the revaluation, actually because ONC is an associate company, which the TBP's ownership is only 10%. So based on the accounting standard, we need to recognize based on the fair value. So that's why we need to assign the KJPP to do the valuation, and then we record in our book. It's quite different with associate company with ownership above 20%, that we can absorb the profit in our profit and loss statement.
Got it, Pak. Yeah. Is the plan to increase stake in the ONC continuing, Pak? Sometime in the future?
Yeah, actually, as per our approval in EJMS, we are allowed to increase ownership in associate company, but for the time being, I still cannot share more information on that. But yes, it's still under our consideration.
Sure, thank you. Just one last question. In terms of, can you remind us on your ONC capex in the past? I saw 628 billion rupiah as the total cost or cost of purchase. What is the equity and debt mix at the time?
For ONC itself,
yes, for
the
ONC
capex
itself.
is about $1.2 billion. And the financing from the banks is about 65%, and the rest is from the equity.
Thank you, Pak. Thank you. Sorry, just can I have one follow-up on your HGF earlier? You mentioned about the equity purpose. Is it like to maintain 70-30%, say, debt to equity, or later on you will pay this off in terms of the debt?
No, we will maintain the 70-30 or 65-35 proportion equity versus debt.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Pak Igor, for the questions. And then I'll move on to the next questions coming from Melvin. Can you repeat the ratio of cobalt sulfate to electricity cobalt? I think it should be almost the same from MHP to cobalt sulfate and then also electricity cobalt. Yeah, it's just an option of that. And then there's questions coming from Timothy about the ONC stake revaluation. It's just been answered just now with from Pak Suparsin. The next one will be coming from Pak Irfan Ubaidillah from Surya Fajar. What is the current market share of NCKL in Indonesia? I think because of the market is not too open, yeah, because there's a lot of company are not listed, yeah. In terms of, for example, like your NPI production in Indonesia at the moment, I think we are looking close to about 1.5 to 1.8 million ton annual basis. We are in about 120,000 at the moment. Yeah, and then if you're talking about MHP, I think by end of this year, we are having about 120,000 capacity. Yeah, also for next year. I think in the market now, output is roughly about 300,000 to 350,000. Yeah, and there's only 3 players, yeah, which is us, Huayo, and then also QMB. Yeah, so the market is actually is very small for MHP. Next question will be coming from Raul from HSBC. Can you clarify the quantum of electrical stick cobalt or cobalt sulfate produced is similar for a given amount of processing MHP? Also, the difference in use case of these two, trying to understand why there is such a significant difference in pricing. Pak Suparsin, can you help to answer this?
Okay. For the electrolytic cobalt and cobalt sulfate, whatever cobalt that we have in the MHP that we process further to become electrolytic cobalt is the same, the cobalt content, I mean. So for example, normally the cobalt content is about 10% of the nickel content. So if we produce 10 tons of nickel in the MHP, we will get 1 ton of cobalt inside. If the MHP is processed further to become electrolytic cobalt, we will get that 1 ton of cobalt inside.
Just to add a little bit on this electric cobalt, the nameplate capacity for electric cobalt is roughly around 6,000 per annum, Pak. So that's pretty much the same like the capacity of cobalt sulfate that we have currently.
Okay, thank you, Pak Suparsin and Pak Roy for the answers. Another questions coming from Marisa. Can you provide detail on cash costs and ASP of ONC? It's actually for the cash cost number is slightly lower compared to HPL, yeah, because higher capacity, of course, because of the scale itself. ASP is almost the same like HPL. Yeah, we don't show ONC numbers because we have a minority in there. Yeah, it will ruin the number and everything. Yeah, we only give production. Yeah, combined with HPL. Yeah, coming from our HPL project. It seems that there are no more questions coming from the floor. I think another one coming from Donny. Go ahead, Donny. Thank you.
Hi, Pak Lukito, Pak Roy, Pak Suparsin. Congratulations on your great results. I have a couple of questions. So for the first one, since you're already producing the electrolytic cobalt, any plan to produce electrolytic nickel if the LME price improving as well? The second question is the volume guidance in 2025 and also in terms of the volume mix for the HPAL products such as sulfate, MSP, and also electrolytic for next year too. And the third one, can you share the buyer for this electrolytic cobalt as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Doni. I think Pak Suparsin can help to answer the questions.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Doni, for the question. For the electrolytic nickel, I think yes, we are considering whether we will go on that further process. And if the economics is it makes sense, so we will do that.
To add a little bit, Pak Doni, on that, basically we are still reviewing the possibility to expand or diversify our product to electrolytic nickel as well. But we have not decided yet whether we will do or not, because we are still looking and study carefully on the possibility of doing this project. Because intentionally we plan to diversify the product, but we need to carefully look at the situation and the market condition as well. But we will update the market or to you if we already make a firm decision on that.
Thank you. Or maybe can you share the cost to convert from the MHP to electrolytic nickel on your plan as well? Yeah.
That one we have not finalized the feasibility study, but we still cannot disclose any kind of information like that for the time being. I'm sorry, Pak Doni.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Okay, next is on the production volume. Current capacity is 120,000 ton of nickel from RKF and 120,000 ton of nickel from HPAL. For next year, I think the addition will come from KPS. The full capacity of KPS is 187,000 tons of nickel for 12 lines. But next year, we will only start production for 8 lines, and also it's still ramping up. So I think you can expect probably half or less than half of the production capacity. Depends on the ramping up.
And the product mix for the HPAL as well for next year.
Product mix, you mean in terms of
What you
we
want
will
to
sell
produce
more
for
on
next year?
MHP or nickel sulfate?
Yes, correct. And also the electrolytic cobalt as well.
Yeah, so we will maintain current proportion. Current proportion is we process about 60% of the MHP to become nickel sulfate and cobalt sulfate or electrolytic cobalt. 40% will remain in MHP.
Thank you. Maybe for the third question, maybe can you share the buyer of the electrolytic cobalt as well?
Buyer of
Can you
electrolytic.
repeat? Sorry, I cannot hear.
Buyer for the electrolytic cobalt, Pak.
Oh, okay. I can give you some names. I think we will send it later to you.
Okay. Thank you, Pak. Maybe just one last question for you, Pak Suparsin. Any further initiative or expansion maybe that you can share with us within 1 year or 2 years period? Thank you.
Expansion, I think the only one is on the KPS for the nickel products. While for the others, I think it's for supporting. I think we already share about the tailing recycling and also the quicklime factory. Those are more on supporting the existing smelters.
Thank you so much, Pak Suparsin, Pak Lukito.
No worries.
In addition to that, basically on the supporting expansion, basically you also now in the tender process of this 40 megawatt of solar panel as well, as part of the first 300 megawatt that we are planning to do by next year.
Okay, thank you, Pak Suparsin and Pak Roy. Next questions will be coming from Vanessa. Is it possible to share ASP cash costs for saprolite, limonite, RKF, MHP, cobalt sulfate in third quarter? Yes, we will provide the number later on in the website. Yeah, and then you can reach if you need any more details from the numbers. And then another questions coming from Benjamin Michael. The first questions will be fourth quarter sales volume projection. Yeah, I think from the number itself, as you can see that most of the ore number will be coming from all of the projects that we have from limonite and then also the saprolite. For saprolite, of course, you need to minus about 30% because we buy 30% from outside. And then, of course, for the capacity itself, for example, like RKF, we are projecting about 120,000 for the full year of this year. And then for the MHP, it's about 80 to 85,000 ton of MHP for this year. In terms of the second questions will be IRR for the electrical cobalt converter with the current margin. I think what we can tell you now, I think in terms of investment is roughly about $15 million. Yeah, 1.5. Yeah, for the converter itself. Yeah, I think we can calculate the number from that. And then last questions will be coming from expansion beyond 2026. Yeah, I think as we mentioned before, at the moment, yeah, we are still having a new capacity coming from KPS. Yeah, for next year, I think the first phase will be about 60,000. Yeah, and then the second and third phase will be another like 125,000. Because as initially we are planning to hold capacity of 185,000. Yeah, and then of course beyond that, after like producing the Fanny, we are also expecting to have higher sales coming from the ore itself. Yeah, coming from our mining. And then apart from that, we have the tailing management and then also the limonite converter. Yeah. Next questions coming from Faris from BCA. What do you think for nickel ore supply in the market for next year? Is it going to be tighter than this year? Pak Roy, I think you can help to answer the questions about the ore supply in the market for next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Lukito. It's quite difficult to answer that because we don't have any official data on this RKB approved by the government. But what we heard from the market or our colleague in the association, basically, some of them are still trying to get the approval of the RKB. And what I heard from the association, basically, they are still struggling if the approval is still very strict like this year. So if the condition is like this year, probably next year, the quota for production and also selling of ore will decrease in accordance with this approval that already granted by government to existing IUP holders. So let's see whether the new government will change the policy or not. I don't know, to be honest with you, but we see that supply of ore will be not very lot compared to previous years.
Okay, thank you, Pak Roy. Next question coming from Benjamin Michael. What is the IRR on the solar panel expansion? Pak Roy, can you help for this?
At the moment, we are still finalizing also the financing cost and feasibility study on the financial as well. But all I can say that the average estimated investment cost for 1 megawatt is roughly around 700 to 800,000 per 1 megawatt. So that's the I can share with you at the moment, Pak.
Okay, thank you, Pak Roy. More questions coming from Jeremy. Yeah, I think will the product of the limestone factory will be used internally in NCKL HPAL or sold to third party? Yeah, I think the answer will be for our own internal consumption. If used internally, how much could it further reduce your HPAL cash cost? In terms of number, yeah, I think we will give the numbers when the project is already online. Yeah, but I think as a number, I think roughly about a month we use about 40 to 50,000 of ton of limonite actually. Yeah, I think that will give you a bit
So,
number.
in line with the operation of ONC, I think the limestone, or sorry, the quick lime requirement from these two HPAL will increase from 45 to around 80,000 per month coming next year. So that's why we are planning to do this limestone factory in order to produce by our own and reduce the cost of limestone accordingly.
Okay, thank you, Pak Roy, for adding that. I think there are no more questions on the floor. Let me check here. Anyone else want to ask questions? You can just raise your hand, or still want to do from the Q&A chat box. I think, okay, there's another questions from Irfan Ubaidillah. Is the price of nickel ore still high? I think Pak Suparsin can help to answer that.
This one I am not really clear. The price of nickel ore from our mines or the nickel ore that we buy from external. But the price of the nickel ore that we sell from our mines to our smelters is based on the government reference price. So it's very simple to get the number.
Okay, thank you, Basin. I think they will be our last questions. Thank you everyone for joining the call. If you have more questions, feel free to contact us, whether it's coming from email or a phone call. I think we can just phone call away, and you can just schedule a Zoom call. Presentation will be updated later today. Yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you everyone for joining the call. Bye-bye.
Thank you.